Leper gnomes are diseased and mutated gnomes, typically afflicted as a result of the loss of Nomergon. As is well known, when Nomergon was invaded by Trogs during the Third War, the treacherous Seiko Thermoplug persuaded High Tinker Gelbin Mekatork, once he felt he had no other options, to release toxic radiation into the city to kill the invaders. Initially, the chief advisor presented falsified numbers and planned to have about 30% of the gnomish population die, then swoop in and eliminate the Trogs, then frame the High Tinker for the event and gain his position as a result. Instead, he underestimated the deadliness of the gas and 80% of the gnomish population died, while the survivors instead desperately rallied to Mekatork. As the healthy gnomes evacuated to Ironforge, Thermoplug stayed behind with the addled and insane survivors, the Leper Gnomes, and proclaimed himself King of Nomergon. Incidentally, the gnomes only discovered Thermoplug's betrayal when they saw that he was not among them in the evacuation, and very slowly his plans and plots were unraveled to the public. His machinations are still not fully known though, and in-universe there are plenty of conspiracy theories, each with some level of credence, as to what happened in Nomergon involving the Trogs, the Dark Iron Dwarves, Thermoplug's missing lieutenants, which sometimes reappear and cause trouble, etc. The effects of the mutation on leper gnomes leave them heavily physically addled. Other than the obvious visual difference involving their gangrene-green skin, which is often rotting away, and glowing eyes, they are also generally much physically weaker than normal gnomes, and often rely on machinery in combat. They are in constant pain and often wish for death. More so, they also suffer from great mental problems, and the vast majority of them are insane, paranoid, hallucinogenic, and often attack non-leper gnomes on sight. It's been stated that even the lightly affected survivors of Nomergon, who haven't necessarily turned into leper gnomes yet, tend to suffer from memory loss. In addition, if leper gnomes are exposed to even greater doses of radiation, if they don't die in the process, they eventually transform into mindless, though apparently mostly harmless, puddles of toxic sludge. Their condition is also usually toxic to outside people. Sometimes, in the rare cases where leper gnomes manage to become somewhat integrated in other societies, they wear protection suits in order to keep others safe. Although many gnomes continue to do research on this, the leper gnome condition is not reversible, except in the cases where the gnome has only been slightly irradiated and hasn't transformed completely yet. Most notably, it's been hinted at that Thermoplug himself was working on a cure, though that seems odd given his character and insanity. Despite everything, Seiko Thermoplug is still somehow, possibly alive. When various adventurers were sent to kill him in vanilla, he either evaded them or fooled them by using, quote, cleverly engineered facsimiles. Following Operation Nomergon, he ambushed Gelbin Mekatork while the latter was inspecting his recently reclaimed former personal quarters in the ruined city, only to end up cut in half at the waist. The wound was immediately cauterized though, thanks to him being in a battlesuit at the time, preventing a massive loss of blood. And while he was left for dead, it's probable that he eventually managed to get back to his seat of power in the Tinker's Court. As for the Cataclysm questline, which requires that he be killed, well, it's difficult to tell if that came to fruition. On the one hand, we do see in the Gnome Heritage Armor questline that much of Nomergon was reclaimed and is being decontaminated, yet on the other hand, a pet battling questline implies that he's still out there creating menacing inventions for your battle pets to duel with. A gnomish expedition made landfall in eastern Oldham following the Cataclysm and began searching the area. In spite of the warnings of a group of Tol'vir priests, they also dug into a series of tombs, including, notably, the tomb of Sun King Nakhotep, unleashing a curse which turned them into insane leper gnomes. There is some debate within the community as to whether these are actually leper gnomes or supposed to be undead gnomes and they were limited by the models they had available to depict them. This isn't exactly canon, but the leader of the gnome expedition, Twizzleflux the Insane, was depicted later on in Hearthstone, about 8 to 9 years later, where he is depicted as a leper gnome. Some of the leper gnomes who are not completely insane have tried to integrate themselves within other societies, typical not with the rest of humanity though. Notably, several of them have joined the Forsaken Royal Apothecary Society, and even tend to see themselves as Forsaken despite not being undead, including being intensely loyal to Sylvanas Windrunner. As Apothecary Jared said of his leper gnome apprentice Crispin, "Sure, he's not been plagued in the same manner as we have, but he's clearly plagued nonetheless." Many others act as mercenaries and have even often joined goblin cartels and organizations, often acting against gnomish groups. For instance, the leper gnome Gimbal Sprite was Gazlo's co-engineer and pilot during the races and technological competitions between gnomes and goblins at the Mirage Raceway and later Fizzle and Pozik's speed barge. The venture company also hired Garenzo Wrenchwhistle, which caused a scandal in Undermine and weakened the company's standing with the other trade princes, yet he created the revolutionary Super Reaper 6000 woodcutting machine, which greatly benefited the venture company. Notably, Lady Vash also hired Mechgineer Steamrigger and his leper gnomes, who probably designed and operated the steam vaults, the mechanical side of Koalfang Reservoir, which drained the water of Outland.